Pulverize Druid, a little late to the game, a couple days old. A lot of people posted similar builds. Mine's a little different because it focuses on resource generation more than basically anything. You can't really do damage if you're constantly out of spirit. Now, every guide I've seen about Diablo 4 is usually 25 to 30 minutes long, and I don't want to do that. I want to break this down and make it as simple as humanly possible for you guys to understand. So, with that being said, there are going to be times where I go from armor and then talk about a skill. If that's the case, it's important, so that's the only time I'm going to do that. I'm not going to talk about every single roll on my gear because it's not necessary. I'm going to give you a list of what rolls to look for on gear, and if you happen to get those on a piece of item, then use it. Simple as that. I don't have the best gear, so who am I to showcase exactly what I have? Do I have a few really good ones? Sure. Are all of them fantastic? Absolutely not. So there's no point in me showing every single detail. I'm going to just tell you why the build works, what to look for, and how all the things interweave. Insert the Charlie Day meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the gear that you will need to get into a Pulverize Druid endgame build. The thumbnail is not a clickbait. I'm hitting for 2 to 3 million on the regular with this build, although I have changed certain things to make it even more comfortable feeling, quality of life things, and lost out on a little bit of damage. But that's okay because we still do plenty. I have brought this build all the way up to level 54 Nightmare Dungeons solo. I have completed them, but they are a pain in the ass because everything one-shots you, regardless of how much armor or resistances you have. You get hit with 2 poison arrows, you're dead. So it's doable, it's difficult, but for everything under 50, my friends literally don't like playing with me anymore because I clear the map so fast. They're just literally chasing a gold trail to the boss line. I'm not kidding. Literally happens constantly. So how does this build work, and what are we exactly doing with a druid with Pulverize? Well, Pulverize turns into a super strong AoE clearing monster, and that is because of a certain aspect. But before we get into the aspects, let's just look at what kind of drops you want for your gear. This part is important, so please bear with me. I'm trying to just do this as simple as possible. The item stats you are looking for on a piece of gear, and if you have one that drops with all 4 of these, that should be a main item for you. Number 1 is Lucky Hit. Our entire build is based around our key passive, Earthen Might. That requires lucky hits, so we want to get that as high as possible. My gear doesn't even have that much on it, but it still works out pretty okay because we're doing AoE damage, and I'm pretty sure each hit of that AoE has a chance to lucky hit. So the chances go up exponentially. But the more, the merrier. Look for a lucky hit. It can drop on gloves, amulets, rings, and totems, but we're using a 2-hander, so take away totems. So you have 4 chances to get it. Do your best to find it. Number 2, we're looking for cooldown reduction on all of that same kind of gear plus helmets. We want our cooldown to be as low as possible because our main damage source is going to be Grizzly Rage. Grizzly Rage, with another aspect we have, makes our crit damage go up times 99. I know that sounds like a lot. It is, but you want this up as much as possible, so keep that in mind. The third thing you want to look for, in my opinion, is resource generation. I have it here on my ring, 17.7%. What this does is every time we use our generator, and for this case, it's Earth Spike. Earth Spike generates us +2 spirit per time we use it. But on our gloves, we also have Lucky Hit up to 15.8 of our primary resource, and that works with this as well. So it tends to give us a decent form of sustain within our own build, plus our Paragon tree. Next thing you might want to look for is Max Spirit. Max Spirit, again, I'm currently at, I believe, 180, allows us to use our skills and have less downtime while clearing dungeons as fast as possible. And then the last thing we are going to look for on our defensive gear, mainly chest, legs, stuff like that, is health. The reason we want health is health also applies to Fortify. And as you can see on our amulet here, we have damage based of our Fortify. So if we have 10k health, we'll do an extra 4,500 damage, and that scales however it scales, etc. So those are the stats you are looking for. Besides those utility stats though, you are going to be looking for crit chance, because crit also helps our lucky hit, which we'll talk about once we get to the skill tree. You want damage to crowd control enemies, damage to slowed enemies, overpower damage, all of those kind of berry, earthy things. Those are the stats for offense you are looking for. Pretty self-explanatory. So I don't feel like we need to really break it down too much further than that. Those 5 utility perks are your top things you're looking for on your rings, amulets, stuff like that. And then just plus more damage things that you can fit in where they get in. The only thing I want to mention is having a big stat dump like 183 willpower on your staff is kind of important on this build, as it unlocks a lot of Paragon stuff until you finish off your Paragon boards. Not 100% needed, but it does also add to our damage. As you can see, willpower increased skill damage by 72%. If I take this off, it goes down to 54. So it is a pretty large boost to our willpower, which does increase our damage. So those are the 5 stats for utility you're looking for. Those are the 5 stats for really offense you're looking for. Anything else in between, feel free to fit in. Like I have movement speed on my boots with more willpower. We have +4 ranks to pulverize, you know, armor and werebear stuff. That kind of stuff is self-explanatory, and I feel like to save time on this video, we don't really need to go into it. Just if you find some piece of gear with these combination of stat rolls, you should probably switch it into your build because they're the best. I am re-recording this because the last time I did this, it took over 8 minutes, and I feel like we can do it a lot faster. So let's jump into exactly what you need in this build and why it works, exactly what it is, and all the imprints that you are looking for. First off, we have Vassal's Prayer, not necessary for this build, although it is nice because it allows us to use Earth Spike as a generator instead of Maul or Storm Strike. This is basically that, plus it applies Fortify, and we can use Earth skills while in Werebear form, so also our Earthen Bulwark. Not necessary for the build. I had this drop at 64, so from 48 to 64, I did not have this helmet, and I was doing just fine with a Pulverize Druid build, but it is nice once it drops. Next thing, Insatiable Fury. Again, not necessary. This allows us to be in Werebear form at all times, plus 2 ranks to all Werebear skills. Very, very nice to have, but not necessary. But if you do not have this, there is something in the skill tree, which we will talk about, that you will take out that you won't use if you do not have this chest piece. Over here, we have Earth skills, deal more critical strike damage to crowd control enemies. Literally all of our abilities are crowd controls, so this works perfectly fine with us. Down here, we have you gain... Oh, before I move on from here, I was using Fist of Fate. I was lucky enough to get a God roll at 300% of Fist of Fate. This has every single thing we want on it. Primary resource, healing, immobilize, and daze, all perfect for our build. I was using these. This is how I got really, really spiky numbers sometimes. Fantastic for the build, but I eventually switched it up once I got a really good gauntlet to drop, and that is what we're using. Pants don't really matter too much. I have just a max roll armor on this. I would like health on this, but I haven't had that to drop yet. Down here, we have boots. This is damage from all Earth skills. Slow enemies, that is our crowd control to get the bonus damage. Over here, we have on our amulet, your core skills deal a percentage of your fortify. That is why you want health on your gear, because we will be doing 45% extra damage based off our fortify, which is based on our health. Then we have Pulverize is now also an Earth skill. This is huge for our skill tree because this is where we really start to spike numbers, because there's a lot of modifiers in the skill tree for Earth damage. So this is huge. This is a must-have in the build. Second to last, we have Grizzly Rage is increased by 4 seconds. In addition, your Grizzly Rage crit damage based on how many crits you have done while in Grizzly Rage, stacking up to 99, do more damage for each consecutive one. This is huge. This is where we get our big chunky numbers from, like on the thumbnail. This is a fantastic imprint. Make sure you put this on your rings. And then down here is the main one that creates the entire build all together. Pulverize creates a shockwave that travels forward, dealing up to 200% damage. This allows us to do AoE damage instead of kind of like single target or smaller AoE. Now, before we move on from the items, we just have to talk about the weapons real quick. There are 3 weapons you want to use with this build, all 2-handers, hammers, axes, and staves. Now, the benefit for each of them is hammers do more overpower damage, axes do more healthy damage, which is them above, I believe it's 70% health, and then this is more damage to crowd control enemies. All of them are fine, but I find later on in the game, staves win out because you originally are using the axe because you're one-shotting everything, but as you're pushing content, you're not one-shotting as much, and that second hit of Pulverize, because now they have the slow applied to them, will guarantee you to do that extra damage to crowd control targets. Lastly, hammers are great, but if you're not overpowering or your cycle is messed up of your skills, you're going to lose out, and that just becomes a dead stat. Over here, that is all the items and imprints. Again, link in the description. Trying to do this as quick as possible. For our boons, we have wariness, again, pushing harder content, reduce damage from elites, increase critical strike chance here. That should put us at, on this build, at 21%, which is a nice little sweet spot. Over here, we have Calamity, increase the duration of our ultimate skill, which is Grizzly Rage, because we want this to last as long as possible. And then down here, these are the two main ones here. Obsidian Slam grants us an overpower every 20th kill. It used to be 10. If you're struggling in harder content, move this over to Masochist, which will keep you alive basically at all times. And then down here, Calm Before the Storm. This helps reset our Grizzly Rage perk. So this is huge to keep this build continuing to cycle exactly how it's supposed to work. Now, on to abilities, which is a metric crap ton of more talking to do, but let's get into it. Here we have Earth Spike. Again, we are using Earth Spike because of the helmet. Otherwise, we would be using Storm Strike or Maul. Either one is fine. Down here, we have max points into Pulverize, into Enhanced Pulverize, and then Raging Pulverize. If you are pushing hard content, change out Raging Pulverize and put it into here. This grants you 20% reduced damage from all targets hit by Pulverize. Our Pulverize AoE is gigantic. This helps a ton if you're pushing anything above 40 plus or struggling. Over here, we have Wild Impulses with only 2 of 3, because I feel at 3, we get 1 less Pulverize per full spirit globe, which allows us not to crit as much, which allows us not to proc Earthen Might as much, which then helps us not generate as much spirit. So I only put 2 points here. You can put 3 if your spirit generation is better than mine, and I put the extra point here into Abundance. Down here, we have Predatory Instinct for increased critical strike chance, Iron Fur for a little bit of damage reduction because we had an extra point laying around. Over here, we have Earthen Bulwark, all the way up to Innate Earthen Bulwark. This is your oh shit button. It grants you Unstoppable. It gives you a barrier of life. It is a fantastic ability. And then we are taking this one because these shrapnels that fly can crit and can proc Earthen Might. So this is huge to have. Then all the way down here, we are taking Nature's Reach. Since we have the Pulverize aspect that grants us a range on it that is no longer close, this increases the damage since they will always be slowed. And down here, we have Hurricane. Hurricane grants us vulnerability. That is the main reason we're using it, but also because of these 2 perks here, but we'll talk about them in just a second. Down here, we have 1 point into Mending, only to get to 3 points into Provocation. Provocation is the perk I was talking about, that if you do not have the unique chest piece, do not run this. Put those 3 points somewhere else. Staying in Werebear form, even with the unique chest piece for 20 seconds, is a task in itself, because this is really the only way to proc vulnerability within our build, which pulls us out of bear form. That's great. That's fun. Fantastic. I believe we were here where I was talking about if you do not have the unique chest piece, do not use this perk. Put those 3 points somewhere else. We have 1 point into Trample, 1 point into Enhanced, and 1 point into Savage Trample to help generate spirit in our build. Down here, these are super important because our Pulverize is now an Earth skill. We get scaling off of all of these, which guarantees us Fortify, bonus damage, and increased damage to slowed enemies, which is all perfectly fine for our build. The last thing to note is down here, we have these points here. Pulverize is also a nature magic skill, so we get the bonus damage from this. I was lucky enough to get a piece of gear with +3 to Defiance, which is huge. Natural Disaster, which is gains us damage to vulnerable enemies with our Pulverize. And then Resonance, this allows us to swap between Hurricane, Earthen Bulwark, and Pulverize, all proccing opposite of each other. If you use Hurricane, you get extra bonus damage on your Pulverize. Then you reset it using Earthen Bulwark, and then you reset it again using Hurricane, and your Pulverize does extra damage again. We have 2 points into Circle of Life. If you have the unique pants that heal you past a barrier or gain you health over a barrier, as barrier, this is really important. I don't have those currently. We have 1 point here to increase the amount of Fortify we generate, and then we are taking the Grizzly Rage Ultimate and the Earthen Might Capstone. This capstone allows for a ton of stuff. This is why we are spec so heavily into crit, because what this does is a lucky hit, even though we're hitting multiple enemies, so the dice rolls a ton of times. Lucky hit has a chance to restore all of our spirit and cause all of our attacks to be guaranteed critical strikes for 5 seconds. Then if that is a crit, then it increases the chance up to 15%. And if they are stunned, immobilized, or knocked back, we get another 10%. So although we don't immobilize, stun, or knockback often, we do those things. So this is very beneficial to our build. And that is the full breakdown of the skills. We, again, will have a link down in the description below. And I'm actually... Okay, so for our Paragon board, I decided not to do it in the website, but the website will be a similar Paragon board to mine. But without being able to see how many points I currently have on my level, I'm overspending on the website, and I don't want to do that for what I currently have available in this build. However, after looking at this and making this video, I realized I do have some things a little bit wrong and could be better elsewhere, but we'll talk about those. Nothing too major, just some glyphs that I didn't really notice existed. The first glyph for me, and this is probably as you're leveling the better one, shapeshifting has a 20% chance to cause the skill's damage to critically strike. This was great when I didn't have the chest piece and wasn't currently always a werebear. It probably has fallen off now because it should only proc when I'm turning from human when I cast Hurricane into werebear when I cast Pulverize. So this probably needs to be changed. I'll work on that on a later date, but that's currently what I have in my first one. It's one of these. I don't remember exactly which one, but it does do damage to nature magic skills. So that's probably what I'm going to put in here. And then up here, our second tree is going to be the werebear one, which is bonus damage to healthy enemies. Then we come here to grab survival instincts, which gives us a huge damage boost. Then we're going to come up here and then we're going to grab this glyph, which is 40% increased damage while in werebear form and less damage taken if you hit the positive node. We're going to come up here, and this is the most important tree in all of werebear-isms. This tree is probably what you probably don't want to do because it's boring, but I promise you, if you do, you will be enjoying your werebear so much more that it actually feels usable and viable. So what does this skill tree do? Well, the special node is Ancestral Guidance, and this gives us extra damage for every 75 spirit. That's like 3 or 4 pulverized casts, and then we get 30% extra damage for 5 seconds. But the main thing you're doing here is these nodes here. 1 spirit on kill, 2 spirit on kill, 4 maximum spirit, 1 spirit on kill, 4 maximum spirit. All these nodes here with like the little antler looking things. Oh, it's a flower, water, and print. These all give us maximum spirit, some max life. And this allows us to actually be able to use our Pulverize in an effective manner instead of like occasionally using it and being out of spirit in 2 seconds. All of these nodes make your build feel so much better. And then plus, if you have the resource generating thing on your rings, this probably procs off that as well, giving you like 6 per enemy killed, and you kill entire rooms with 1 or 2 hits. So that's a lot of spirit regeneration you're giving back to yourself, and it just feeds into this loop and this cycle, and it's really good. I promise you, take this skill tree as your second one. It's so worth it. Then up here, this glyph, we have when you overpower, they take increased damage, plus we're doing 185% extra overpower damage on this. We come down here for harmony to grab this node, and then we're off of this tree and we're going back down here. So we come back down here and then we go into Ursine for more werebear and overpower damage. Then we come down here, and this is the tree I'm basically still working on. We grab a press for more crowd control damage. I don't have the intelligence node yet. We come down here to the legendary perk, which is Earth Skills, deal 30% increased damage to enemies afflicted by crowd control. And then the last glyph we currently have is 25.7 critical strike damage with Earth Skills, plus 7 intelligence and some resistance. Then the last thing I grabbed so far is 15% critical strike damage with Earth Skills, and I'm probably going to scroll up to Crushing Earth and grab that one. Again, this all will be linked down in the description below. I know it's super hard to follow, but just pick the Earth Werebear overpower crit damage stuff and you will be fine, I promise. The one on the website will be a little different and more points spent, so just be aware of that, but it has the general same idea. But that's it, guys. That is the entire Werebear Pulverize endgame Druid build. I tried to make this as easy as possible. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I had no idea how much overlapping there was going to be between points while making this video, once you include the Paragon points and all the skill tree points and everything like that. I did my absolute best to do it that way. There will be a link down in the description below. Feel free to click and follow along. If you guys like this build, I plan on doing more Druid Guide stuff and some other more general content coming later this week. Thank you guys so much for talking, listening. Jesus Christ, this video has done me in. I promise this a lot harder than it looks to get everything short and condensed. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys on the next one. Please feel free to like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. If you want to see me live at Twitch, twitch.tv/roundedtictac, we would love to see you there. Thank you guys so much. I will see you on the next one. Tic Tac out.